I betrayed Ethan, revealing the secrets of his family, which led to their ruin. Every day after Ethan and I got married was a day of revenge. After marriage, he was constantly involved in scandalous affairs, indulging his lovers who humiliated me, while his brothers mocked me. He knew I had a serious congenital heart disease, yet he still forced me to get pregnant. Because his revenge on me was to take two lives with one body. Until the doctor announced my death, a woman who looked exactly like me appeared before Ethan. He only then realized he had hated the wrong person. After I became pregnant, Ethan placed me in an abandoned villa in the suburbs, assigning someone to watch over me and restricting my movements. This is the 7th month of pregnancy, and the fetus in my womb grows day by day, placing an increasingly heavy burden on my heart. I have congenital heart disease. Since birth, I have undergone several surgeries intermittently just to prolong my life, and even so, the doctors assert that I won't live past 20. Let alone getting pregnant and having children. The process of pregnancy will cause my heart condition to deteriorate sharply, and in the end, whether it is a natural birth or a cesarean section, it will cost me my life. My only wish was to live long enough for the child to be born safely at full term. It's just that now, I have begun to show early symptoms of heart failure, with frequent palpitations, angina, and abdominal pain. I know I might not last until that day. Ethan has always known about my condition, yet he only allows the doctors to monitor my vital signs, forbidding any treatment measures. He wants me to die twice. This is his revenge against me. Because my father, for the sake of business, colluded with Ethan's family's archrival, leading to the bankruptcy of the Ethan family, and Ethan's father was framed, dying of a sudden illness in prison. Ethan believes I am the culprit who leaked the secrets of his family, because that confidential document was only seen by me when I accidentally came across it at his house. Ethan disappeared for 2 years, and when he reappeared, he was the industry giant and young elite that everyone in City A admired. And the first thing he did after his comeback was to marry me. Then torment me. The password to the wedding house hasn't changed. I held my belly as I entered the villa and took the indoor elevator to the 2nd floor. Ethan has been unwilling to see me, nor does he answer the phone. I had someone relay messages to him, but there has been no response for a long time. I had no choice but to come find him myself. I hope that for the sake of the child he has in my womb, he can allow someone to heal me, so that I can live a little longer and our child can safely come into this world. The door to the master bedroom was slightly ajar, and as she approached, faint sounds could be heard from within. The woman said sweetly, "Ethan, wake up." The man lazily spoiled, "Don't make a fuss, let me sleep a little longer." "Aren't you the one who promised to go shopping with me today?" "I already gave you the card, go by yourself." "I have things to do today, be good." The woman refused, continuing to act coy and plead. The man was at a loss and had no choice but to agree to accompany her shopping. Shopping. For Ethan, the head of a soon-to-be-listed company, time is the most luxurious thing. After we got married, just being in the same space with me made him feel disgusted. If it weren't to make me pregnant, if it weren't to humiliate me, he probably wouldn't touch a single hair on my head. Not to mention in bed, speaking to me in such a pampering tone. Every time he starts roughly, then decisively pulls away and leaves. The sounds of the woman's gasps and kisses pulled me back to reality. I stood at the door, stiff and numb, gripping my palm tightly. Due to my body's weakness, I feel my hands and feet are icy cold, and a nauseous sensation is churning in my stomach. I couldn't listen any longer and knocked on the door. The noise inside came to an abrupt halt. I took a deep breath. "Ethan, it's me." "Who is it?" The voice belonged to the woman. Ethan didn't want to see me at all, telling that woman, "Tell her to get out." My heart sank. I was afraid that I wouldn't have time to see him even once, before he truly sent me away. With a determined grit, I charged right in. The woman had just gotten out of bed when she discovered my uninvited presence. Her almond-shaped eyes widened in shock, and with a quick motion, she wrapped herself in a silk robe, covering her snow-white body. I hate my keen eyesight, which caught sight of the traces of desire left on her back. She is a very beautiful woman, tall and slender, with exquisite curves, and her gaze is full of charm. At this moment, she looked at me with considerable hostility, her gaze landing on my belly, exuding the demeanor of a mistress. Didn't I tell you to get lost? I am Ethan's wife, and it's you who should leave now. I didn't move or look at her. Instead, I stared at Ethan, who was sleeping on the bed. The blanket was draped around his waist, revealing his strong, bare upper body, with ambiguous marks left by passionate encounters on his arms and back. He loved outdoor sports, which had given him a strong, muscular physique, and with his height of over 6 feet, combined with the nobility cultivated from growing up in a wealthy family and the composure granted by his experiences, almost no woman could resist him. Ethan let out a cold laugh. Seeing Ethan's indifference towards me, the mistress's attitude became increasingly disdainful. So what if you are Mrs. Ethan? Don't you understand? Ethan doesn't want you to disturb us. Can you stop being so clueless and just get lost? The movement in my belly seems to be reminding me to think about the child. My eyes were burning, and I pleaded, Ethan, I really have something important to tell you. Can you let her go out first? The mistress saw me ignoring her and angrily pushed me. Can you understand human speech? Since I became pregnant, my weight has not only failed to increase, but has actually decreased. At this moment, my round belly makes it even harder for me to maintain my balance, and with a stumble, my back crashes against the sharp edge of the wardrobe. I reacted quickly, holding my stomach and leaning against the wardrobe. My heart raced, and I found it a bit hard to breathe. Seeing Ethan unmoved, the mistress became even more unrestrained, coldly laughing at me. Suddenly, she reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the door, and at the entrance, she gave me a hard shove. The force of my counterattack seemed like an egg striking a rock. In my desperation, I cried out, Ethan, and fell to the ground. A wave of contractions surged through her abdomen, her belly tightened suddenly, and beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead. Suddenly, Ethan strode out, his cold face filled with rage, gripping his mistress by the neck. Who gave you permission to touch her? The mistress looked utterly flustered and bewildered. It was clear that Ethan had instructed her to do this. Ethan threw her away forcefully. Get out. The mistress looked at him in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan, you. Get lost. Ethan said sharply, don't make me say it a third time. The mistress was horrified, her face drained of color from fear. After a moment of stunned silence, though unwilling, she wiped her tears and left. Only Ethan and I remained in the room. He looked down at me from his elevated position, indifferent to my suffering, and asked, coldly, what do you want from me? I recovered from the wave of contractions and palpitations, my tone light and airy. I hesitated for a moment and said softly, I'm not feeling well. Can I have a doctor treat me so that I can at least hold on until 8 months later? Daydreaming. He interrupted me mercilessly, his tone devoid of any fluctuation. I smiled wryly, fully aware that this was the outcome. I didn't have the strength to stand up, so I reached for his hand. The doctor said it's a girl. Can you, for the sake of your daughter, save her? I know you hate me. I lowered my head, my voice growing softer, but your daughter is innocent. Ah. Before his words had even faded, he abruptly released my hand, seized my chin with a fierce grip, and his sinister eyes brimmed with intense hatred. Ava, how shameless can you be to say such things? The seed growing in your belly is not worthy of being my Ethan's child? I felt a surge of fear in my heart. I wanted to touch his hand again, but I didn't dare. His words were like a sharp blade, piercing my heart while a wave of cramping pain surged through my abdomen. Suddenly, he almost dragged me up into the study, pressing me against the desk, making me face the photo in the frame. It was a warm family portrait of 5. Ethan was second in line. He originally had an older brother and a younger sister. If you want me to save you and your kind, you should first ask my parents and siblings if they agree. My dad was framed and died in prison after going bankrupt. The next day, my brother drove my mom and sister and they got into a car accident. You should ask your parents what they did. You and your kind, 2 worthless lives, along with your parents, would be no loss if they all died. I want your whole family to suffer a fate worse than death, and you still dare to hope that I will save you? Ethan tightened his grip on my neck, speaking each word slowly. Ava, I can't let you die too easily. I pressed my hands tightly against the table, tears uncontrollably streaming down my face. In a moment of desperation, I said, I didn't. It wasn't me who did it. Ethan pondered for a moment, then give me a reason that can convince me. Ethan gave me a chance, but I can't say. He sent me a word, get lost. Ethan had someone take me back to the villa in the suburbs. Ethan and I were once in love, perhaps it was the betrayal of the one he loved that made him hate so deeply. Ethan was once the pride of the heavens, free-spirited by nature, and acted recklessly. He was always the one to toy with others, and no one dared to play with him. Women with a bit of courage flock to him, while the proper girls shy away. He is never short of women by his side. The first time I fell in love with a woman, even promising to marry her, I ended up with a shattered family and a tragic fate. For a while, a rumor circulated in the upper circles of City A, claiming that a woman had appeared by Ethan's side, causing the wayward young master to settle down and focus all his thoughts on her. The woman's identity was exposed. Her name is Ava. The family runs a real estate company on the brink of bankruptcy, and everyone says she is getting close to Ethan for ulterior motives, merely to use him to have his family invest in the Gu family and save the company. But Ethan seemed unconcerned. He even went so far as to have several CEOs of publicly traded companies accompany him in a performance, sending projects to that woman's soon-to-be bankrupt small company. According to rumors, the grand fireworks display in the coastal waters near City A was organized by Ethan to celebrate that woman's birthday, and someone personally saw Ethan's super yacht setting out to sea. A video even circulated on social media, showing Ethan appearing at that woman's college reunion, personally declaring in front of his rival that he is Ava's boyfriend. There was even a night when Ethan drove that flashy Koenigsegg supercar to catch up with that woman, wrapping her in his arms by the roadside, silently begging her not to break up. This is undoubtedly a fairy tale of a domineering CEO unfolding in reality. However, the truth is that from the very beginning, this was a trap set by the Gu family to escape their desperate situation, a scheme devised in collusion with the enemies of the Ethan family. At night, I couldn't sleep due to difficulty breathing. At dawn, I woke up amidst a fit of uncontrollable coughing, something warm and moist trickling from my throat, dotting my lips with each cough. I reached out to wipe my lips and felt some wetness. Turning on the bedside lamp, I saw that what stained my fingertips was blood. I rushed out of the room without a care, shouting to wake the family doctor. It's just that this doctor, under Ethan's instructions, never really paid much attention to me. After a quick examination, he said, "It's just heart failure, nothing serious. Make sure to rest and avoid extreme emotional ups and downs." Then, what about the child? The doctor lazily said, "It's nothing serious. As long as there's fetal movement, you don't need to worry. We'll discuss the specifics at the next prenatal checkup." Then I instructed the nanny to prepare some nourishing food for my health and the baby. As the doctor left the bedroom, he muttered sarcastically to himself, "Doesn't the dying person have any awareness of their own body?" Truly a fitting retribution. Retribution? I was momentarily lost in thought, staring at the blood-stained tissue in the trash can, and my stomach suddenly tightened again. It seemed that my daughter was calling out to me for help. A wave of despair rushed towards me. I made up my mind to make one last effort for my child. I left the villa again and went to the Gu family. Gu's parents were having breakfast when they saw me, and instead of showing surprise, they frowned and questioned, "What are you doing back at this time? Didn't Ethan tell you to stay in the villa and take care of the baby, not to wander around?" I got straight to the point and said, "If this pregnancy continues, both the child and I will be lost." The Gu couple said coldly, "Just hold on a little longer. Your health is poor, and the child was never going to be born." My heart had grown cold, yet I mechanically began to speak the words I had prepared. "Could you, for the sake of the help I've given, save my child? Just one more month, and it will be fine." Dad Gu slammed his chopsticks on the table, interrupting my words. Gu's mother pointed at me and said, "Don't think you can be oblivious to right and wrong. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. Once the child is born, are you really not going to give up the position of Mrs. Gu?" I argued expressionlessly, "I didn't, and you all know my body, only one of us, me or the child, can live." Dad Gu said, "That won't do either." I concealed the hatred in my eyes and calmly looked at the two of them. "Aren't you afraid that I will reveal the whole truth?" "You dare." Gu's mother stood up abruptly, coldly snorting with laughter. Don't forget, your adoptive parents and your sister are still in our hands. If you dare to disobey, watch their lives. Besides, you look exactly like Ava. Even if you tell Ethan the truth, as long as we don't acknowledge it, what reason do you think Ethan has to believe you? It's all your fault for having such bad luck, born with illness. If you can make your value known before you die, then at least it won't be a wasted life. As long as you obediently listen to us, your adoptive parents and sister will never have to worry about food and drink in their next life. Everything you have done is for our Goof family and Ava. When you die, Ava will come back to take your place. My vision gradually blurred, and their voices became distant. Yes, there can only be one Ava in this world. It can only be my twin sister, the one who truly betrayed Ethan. Twins, same egg but different fates. My sister was born to be cherished and raised in the palm of a hand, while I, even in the womb, was a fragile fetus, and was even diagnosed with congenital heart disease. And Gu's mother had a miscarriage, her constitution was not conducive to pregnancy, and there were risks in reducing the fetus. The doctor said it would be difficult for me to survive if I were born, suggesting that my mother should give birth to me and let me die naturally. My grandmother is superstitious. Ever since my mother became pregnant with twins, my father's company projects have faced frequent obstacles, and employees occasionally cause disturbances. After the twins were born, I was still in an incubator due to my poor health. My grandmother went to the temple to seek a divination. The expert interpreted the oracle and said that my fate was ominous, that I would disrupt the family's fortune. The consequences could be as light as the family wealth dissipating, or as severe as the family being torn apart. Business people tend to believe in these things. I had just been taken out of the incubator when the Gu family's butler abandoned me by the roadside in the suburbs, watching as my adoptive father carried me back home. My adoptive parents are kind-hearted, and since they have no children of their own, they adopted me. Even later, when it was discovered that I had a congenital illness, they never gave up on me, even after they had a biological daughter. My adoptive parents took out all their savings to treat my illness, allowing me to grow up in a loving family, treating me as their own. My sister still doesn't know that I was adopted. Until 4 years ago, I had just graduated from university. The Gu couple found me and threatened me with my adoptive parents and sister. During the day, the real Ava is with Ethan. At night, I am a shadow playing Ava. At that time, I was already 21 years old, having lived an extra year in this world, which felt like a gain, and I had no regrets. I never expected that during those 200 nights, I would truly fall in love with Ethan. Ethan, who is from a completely different world than mine. He took me through a world of intoxicating splendor, allowing me to experience firsthand what it means to be dazzled by wealth and beauty. He gave me a favored affection that everyone envied, kissing the scars on my heart during every whispered night, murmuring in my ear that he liked me, that he loved me. But now, even a glance from him feels like a charity bestowed upon me. I sometimes can't help but wonder, why have I lived until now? Why must I suffer the pain of love in the final moments of my life? The phone rang. It was Ethan calling on his own. Where are you? I dared not lie, nor could I speak the truth. He hates it when I interact with the Gu family parents. Every time I visit the Gu family, it always makes him angry. I have no choice this time either. The cold voice on the other end of the phone said, "Don't you want me to save you? Come to Tianzi Street. Tianzi Street, the most mysterious top-tier club in the city, operates on a membership system with an entrance fee of $1 million, requiring recommendations from acquaintances and asset verification. Those who can enter are either rich or noble. In the past, Ethan often took me there. Once again in the familiar private room, the people inside were all familiar faces, his brothers and friends. But now, in their eyes, there was nothing but disdain and mockery directed at me. Oh, the ungrateful person has arrived. Some people really have thick skin and still dare to appear before us. Ethan, how can you stand it? Allowing that filthy bitch to stay by your side. Bitches are better than her, who would pay to sleep with a big-bellied woman, ha 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 ha. Ethan suddenly shot a cold glare, his eyes icy. The man was intimidated by his gaze and awkwardly cleared his throat, trying to make amends. Ethan, are you still feeling sorry for her, not allowing us to speak? We're just standing up for you. Ethan scoffed, opening a new bottle of strong liquor. Shall we have a drinking contest? Whoever finishes first gets to have her. He held the bottle of wine, took a sip, rested his hands on the back of the sofa, and looked at me with a chilling smile. A wave of terror made my blood run cold. I think my face must be as pale as death right now. As soon as he finished speaking, the men in the entire room turned to me, their eyes glowing with a beastly, ravenous green light. I hurriedly stepped back. No. Ethan, you won't. The door behind me was suddenly slammed shut, leaving me with no way to escape. A loud voice suddenly shouted, drink. Ethan, you keep your word. Of course. I only find it laughable that the men who looked down on me just moments ago are now competing for my attention, each pouring a bottle of strong liquor down their throats. The lights are dazzling, and the smell of alcohol spreads throughout the private room. Ethan did not participate, he merely looked at me coolly with a pair of pitch-black eyes. Soon, the man who just called me a bitch finished his drink first, slamming the bottle down on the table. She's mine now. The man was named Alex, and he staggered towards me, reeking of alcohol. I kept retreating, casting a pleading glance at Ethan. He merely watched like a spectator from beginning to end, as if he had already accepted that I would become Alex's plaything tonight. I rushed towards Ethan without a care, only to be intercepted by Alex halfway. He had incredible strength, pulling my hand and letting out a belch. Don't you understand the rules? You've already lost to me, even though you're pregnant, but at least you're quite good looking. His gaze boldly shifted to my chest, suddenly gripping the back of my neck, and whispered in my ear, I've had my eye on you for a long time. The smell of alcohol on him made me feel sick. In my struggle, I bit him hard, disgusting. Alex's anger surged, pulling me outside, his mouth spewing foul words, I'm giving you face, who do you think you are? A worthless slut who betrays men, a worn-out shoe, what makes you think you're so high and mighty? My steps were fragmented and unsteady, and just as I was about to fall, someone wrapped their arms around my waist from behind. Immediately after, Alex was struck on the back of the head by a bottle, and Ethan threw aside the broken bottle, kicking Alex against the wall. Alex, furious and embarrassed, shouted, Ethan. You don't mean what you say. I told you still have feelings for this woman, that you can even put aside family grudges. Ethan stepped forward, placing a foot on his chest. It's not your place to meddle in my affairs. My heart beats like a drum. Indeed. Could it be that Ethan is not indifferent to me? Ethan dragged me into a nearby room. He slammed me against the door, and I had no idea what he intended to do, only that the cold intensity radiating from him made me want to escape. In the darkness, he was like a lurking, furious beast, his breath, heavy with the scent of alcohol, wafting over my neck. He also drank, quite a bit. You really have a talent, being able to seduce men even with a big belly. I couldn't see his expression clearly, nor could I discern his emotions. I only knew that he was angry, very angry. In the next moment, he began tearing at the clothes on my body, his weight pressing heavily against me, scorching kisses landing on my neck and chest. I bit down hard on my teeth, doing my best to protect my belly. In vain, I had no choice but to grab his shirt, trembling as I reached out to touch his neck. He trembled violently, his movements coming to a halt. Once, on many lingering nights, I wished the dawn would never come, lovingly caressing his neck and face, holding him tightly. Ethan, don't do this, you'll hurt the child. I felt unwell due to nervousness, and the earlier tugging in the private room, and even speaking, caused a pain in my chest. He slowly raised his eyes, and in the dim light of the moon, I saw the veins on his forehead bulging, and a complex hatred surging in his eyes. Suddenly, he turned his eyes away and threw me onto the bed. I did not escape, nor did I awaken his reason. When my clothes had completely fallen away, my snow-white, round belly exposed to the air, he stared blankly for 2 seconds, his brow furrowing in discomfort, and suddenly turned me over. I willingly swallow the pain that surges from my heart, enduring his frenzied plunder. If there really is no room for negotiation, then these must be my final days. I want him to remember me, to remember this Ava. I trembled as I held him, stroking him like I used to, entwining myself around him, kissing his chin. Ethan. Ethan. Hoping to leave some traces in his life like this. Even fantasizing that one day he would discover the truth. He still can't, having lost his parents and siblings. Living in hatred is already very painful. In the haze, I felt uncomfortable, as if a stone was lodged in my chest, causing a sharp, painful ache. The sound of coughing pierced the tranquility of the night. Something surged up in my throat, making me feel uneasy. I slightly parted my lips, and a familiar warmth spilled out with my cough. I curled up in pain, my consciousness hazy, wanting so much to sleep, feeling so cold. Instinctively, I opened my mouth to breathe in fresh air. It made me feel a little better. A multitude of beautiful images flashed through my mind in an instant, from childhood to now, each frame so vivid. I find myself immersed in it, somewhat unable to distinguish when and where I am. I happened to hear someone calling me. Ava. Ava. The familiar voice seemed to come from a distant horizon. Ethan, it is Ethan. I turned around, and on that cold winter night, Ethan got out of the car, crossing the bustling street. His sharp, unruly brows held a faint smile as he approached me, pulling me into his embrace. So warm, so warm. Ethan. I called his name reluctantly, wrapping my arms around him. I am here. I was having a long dream, unable to wake up from it. The sound of people talking nearby reached my ears, and I found it very noisy. Mr. Ethan, we have found a matching heart. The donor has been declared brain dead and had signed for organ donation while alive, but her parents are not ready to let go yet. Contact the donor's parents, they can have as much money as they want. It was Ethan's voice, calm and unruffled. This isn't just a matter of money. Even if we perform a heart transplant, given Miss Ava's current physical condition, she might not survive the procedure. Moreover, if we go through with the surgery, the child will definitely not be saved. And even if the transplant is successful, her lifespan can only be extended by 3 to 10 years at most. It would merely improve her quality of life. Have the surgery, don't have the child. Ethan's voice was cold and piercing. At this moment, I really started to hate him a little. Why? Does he want to save me, forcing me to live the rest of my life in the pain of losing my child and in his humiliation? I really want to end all of this soon. I can die, but my daughter is innocent. Ethan, daughter. The 4D ultrasound photo of the baby appears before my eyes. That tiny face, the nose and profile very much resemble Ethan. I suddenly opened my eyes. The familiar ceiling and curtains told me that I was in the bedroom of a villa in the suburbs. I am very clear that I have become weaker. A caregiver was standing by, and I hoarsely asked her, "What time is it now?" The nurse patted her chest and said, "Thank heaven, thank earth, you finally woke up. You've been waking and sleeping for almost a week now." A week? I said in a daze. What about Ethan? Mr. Ethan is of course at the company, he's so busy. I looked around, the bed was surrounded by medical equipment, and I had an 4 drip in my hand. Finally. Does it mean that Ethan has agreed to provide the treatment, and the child can be born? The nurse said, "You should rest well first, a matching heart has already been found. The donor's parents have agreed, and in a couple of days, you can have the surgery." My pupils widened in horror. What I heard was not a dream, it was real. Ethan wants to take away my child. What meaning is there in my survival? After that, the Gu family will still not let me go, wanting the real Ava to replace me. The Gu family wants me dead, and Ethan wants my life to be worse than death. Just when I was desperately trying to find a way, Gu's mother called, "I heard Ethan is going to perform surgery on you. We plan to have Ava come back early, you will leave tonight. The Gu family will give you a sum of money to reunite with your adoptive parents. As long as you don't cause any trouble, the Gu family will ensure you spend your last days well." After that, Mother Gu had my adoptive mother video call me, saying they would come to pick me up tonight and take me to a place where no one could find us. Perhaps this is fate. My child's life should not end, it is destined to leave some marks of my existence in this world. I can go to Ethan and find no place to give birth to her. Perhaps the last breath was entirely used to survive, and I did not notice anything wrong with this matter. In the dead of night, I quietly slipped out of the villa. The bodyguard and the caregiver both felt that, given my current physical condition, I could no longer act independently, so their guard was down. So I traveled this way without any obstacles. A sedan stopped at the gate of the villa, and I thought it was my adoptive parents, so I joyfully stepped forward. I got into the car and looked at the front seat, but there was only the driver. "Where are my parents?" The driver respectfully said, "Miss Ava, I will take you to see them right away." I felt a sudden unease in my heart when, with a click, the car door locked. I sensed something was off and reached out to pull the car door, but it was in vain. The car slowly started moving, and I disregarded everything, using all my strength to hit the driver. The car began to lose control, swaying wildly from side to side, and the driver exclaimed in shock, "I'm driving. Are you trying to get us killed?" I immediately woke up. Yes, at least I can't die in this car. I was just about to settle into the back seat when suddenly a blinding light and the sound of a horn pierced the long night. In an instant, the car flipped, and pain engulfed me. Someone is tapping on the car window, calling my name. "Ava. Ava. Ava." But I'm not Ava, Ethan. "Can you call me by my name?" "My name is Evelyn." "Do you want to know my secret?" But he chattered incessantly, calling out Ava over and over again, until all that remained in my ears was a buzzing, and darkness enveloped my vision. "Mr. Ethan, this is the critical illness notice and the consent form for the cesarean section." Ethan's hands were covered in blood, and as he signed, the bloodstains marked the white paper. He said, "Just wait a few more hours, the plane carrying the heart will take off soon." The doctor shook his head. "Mr. Ethan, we are powerless. Your wife was already in severe heart failure, and if it weren't for the accident, we might have been able to save her. However, your wife's heart has stopped, and there is no hope for her. We can only try our best to save the fetus while there are still signs of life in the child." Ethan did not take it in. Half an hour later, news came that Ava's resuscitation was unsuccessful and that the child showed no signs of life in the emergency room. Ethan stood calmly in the corridor outside the operating room, motionless as if made of wood, watching the nurse carry a baby covered in vernix and blood towards the neonatal intensive care unit. The bed that was pushed out next was covered with a white cloth, wrapping around the outline of a body. His gaze fixed on the abdomen that no longer swelled. "Mr. Ethan, my condolences." Ethan had nothing to mourn. He felt he should regret not being able to make her suffer as planned, to make her wish she were dead. "She still died too easily, didn't she?" He lifted the white cloth, to confirm. The doctor had cleaned her up. Aside from the bruises from the car accident, her face wore a serene expression as if she were asleep, though it was a bit pale. He brushed the back of his hand against her cheek, and there was still a lingering warmth. Then news came that the child had been rescued. However, due to premature birth, as well as the mother's frailty and the car accident, some complications arose, requiring a stay in an incubator for a period of time and treatment. Ethan handed the funeral and the matter of that child over to his secretary, while he busied himself with meetings, business negotiations, and social engagements as if nothing had happened. It was just that he had been busy lately, and his sleep had been affected. His alcohol intake had increased significantly, otherwise he couldn't fall asleep. As soon as I close my eyes, a voice uncontrollably echoes in my mind, "Ethan. Ethan. Call my name, Ethan. My name is Evelyn. Do you want to know my secret?" He doesn't allow himself a moment of leisure, nor does he grant himself a moment of clarity. The 4th day after Ava's death. The secretary called him, urging him to hurry to the hospital, saying Ava was going to take the child away. Ethan's mind exploded with a bang, as if something had collapsed, with a thunderous crash. When they arrived at the hospital, a group of people was arguing incessantly outside the neonatal intensive care unit. There are family members, medical staff, and also the bodyguards sent by Ethan to watch over the hospital. "Step aside." Ethan barked, and everyone fell silent, parting to make way for him. Through the crowd, Ethan saw Ava standing among the people. To be precise, it is the healthy version of Ava. The features were identical, but the person before him had a rosy complexion and a slender, graceful figure. With tears in her eyes, as if 1,000 years had passed in a glance, she suddenly threw herself into his arms. Ethan. Some truths struggled to break free, pounding painfully against Ethan's heart. Ava said that her health had never been good, and after a serious illness, she feared she wouldn't live long, so she made the tough decision to leave. But worried that he wouldn't be able to handle it, she brought in her twin sister Evelyn, whom she had been adopted out to since childhood, to take her place. Little did she expect that Evelyn would incite my parents to do such a thing. Evelyn has been jealous of me since we were little because her fate was unfortunate, and our family had to adopt her out. From then on, she hated our family. It was Evelyn who wanted to take revenge on us, to ruin the stock price, to make you hate me, and that's why she teamed up with the Ethan family's long-standing feud, dragging my parents into it as well. Goo's parents also explained, yes, Ethan, if it weren't for believing Evelyn's slander, how could we have done such a thing? Ethan listened to these clumsy lies with no expression on his face. How dare these people, how dare they push everything onto her? Ava hadn't heard him speak for a long time, feeling a sense of dread in her heart. With tears welling up, she said, Ethan, say something, it's me, Ava, you're Ava. Ava reached for his hand to caress her face, but was suddenly pushed away by Ethan. He publicly tore open her clothes, revealing her snow-white chest. Evelyn had undergone several heart surgeries since childhood, leaving her with a few scars on her chest. As time passed, her skin became even paler, making it almost impossible to see the scars in dim light. But countless times in the night, he traced those scars with his lips, knowing their color and shape. In front of me, Ava's chest, despite the effort to replicate it, bore a scar that was thick and coarse, with a darker hue. Ava gasped and clutched her chest, but Ethan pushed her away with a forceful hand, glaring at her coldly, get lost. Ava looked at him with grievance, wanting to step forward. Ethan. Ethan shouted, get lost. When the surroundings finally quieted down, Ethan stood outside the glass wall of the neonatal intensive care unit. In the incubator, a baby girl with an oxygen tube inserted at her nose sleeps soundly with her fist clenched. The name tag reads, daughter of Ava. Perhaps having stood for too long, Ethan felt his feet heavy as if filled with lead, and some invisible weight bent his spine. He leaned against the glass with both hands, arching his back as a painful low growl escaped his throat. The mournful howl of a widowed lone wolf. The year after Evelyn's death. The Gu family declared bankruptcy, and the Gu couple was sentenced to 15 years in prison for multiple charges including kidnapping, financial fraud, and scams. By the time he was released from prison, he was already in the twilight of his years. Ava, in order to protect herself, shifted all the blame onto her parents. On the frantic escape abroad, a car accident occurred, resulting in the amputation of both legs and a subsequent mental breakdown, leading to Ethan admitting her to a psychiatric hospital. Evelyn's death anniversary. Ethan went to the country villa again, which still retained the appearance it had during Evelyn's lifetime. He had already been awake for over 24 hours, sitting on the bed where Evelyn had once lain, a notebook spread across his lap. It was the 4th day after Evelyn's death, and he had nearly turned the entire villa upside down before finding a thick diary in the closet of the master bedroom. Even though he had seen it countless times, he still turned to that familiar page. It was the day they began. My parents from the Gu family found me, and I was forced to accept their demands, to approach the man named Ethan under the identity of Ava. Ethan has a bit of a temper, a spoiled rich kid's demeanor, reckless and unruly. Anyway, this is just my task. I only need to interact with him at night, so perhaps I won't have to endure it for too long. I seem to have fallen for him. Today is my birthday, and Ethan took me out to sea. On the yacht, it was just the two of us and a few of his friends. For the first time, I felt a longing, hoping that he could belong to me alone. I can't go on like this anymore. I don't know what the Gu family is after, but the deeper my feelings grow, the harder it will be to leave him in the future. I suggested breaking up, but I couldn't resist. In that trembling tone, he begged me not to break up. He held me as if I were a treasure he cherished dearly. I don't want to give him up to Ava during the day. Suddenly, I wanted to live, wanted to be with him, to create more memories, wanted to hear him call my name, wanted to hear him call me Evelyn. Recently, a lot has happened. I had no idea that the Goo couple would dare to do such a thing. They initially approached me, but it turned out it was only to help Ava escape, pushing all the blame onto me. If it failed, they would throw me under the bus. If it succeeded, Ava would be able to live cleanly as the young lady of the Goo family. Ethan is gone. 2 years ago, I thought things would come to an end. The Goo family said Ethan wouldn't give up. He was preparing to start a company abroad, fearing that one day he would make a comeback. I never expected that day would come so soon. They found me again, kidnapping my adoptive parents and sister. Perhaps they knew my illness was worsening and wanted to squeeze out my last value. They wanted me to become Mrs. Ethan, so that after I died, they could pin everything on me and let Ava rekindle her relationship with Ethan. Ethan hates me, but I can't say anything. Ethan, do you know? I am Evelyn. I'm pregnant. It's a girl. He doesn't want our child. Ethan, do you know? I am Evelyn. Ethan stroked the words on the diary. I know, you are Evelyn. He murmured, Evelyn. The sound of a child crying came from outside, and the butler carried in a little girl of about 1 year old. The little girl spoke with a nasal tone, her words unclear as she whined, Daddy, hold me. Ethan got up and hugged his daughter, wiping away the tears on her face, looking at her with affection as he saw the shadow of Evelyn on her face, calling her by her nickname. Don't cry anymore, little Evelyn.